the economy began to evolve, this consumer-based economy. But in order to keep it growing, we had to keep on taking on ever-increasing quantities of debt, which the world was willing to supply us. And, you know, of course, with the housing bubble, which when I was very critical there, that's what enabled Americans to borrow money on an unprecedented scale. I mean, we raised it, to an art form where we were borrowing, literally trillions of dollars from the world, and we were just blowing it all on massive consumption. And our trade deficit, during this decade, went from, what used to be a pretty bad, 10, 12 billion a month up to 60 billion, 70 billion a month. And, this was completely unsustainable. And then, you had, half of the income from the S&P 500 was being generated from financial services. And it was all an illusion. And I saw all the risks that were being taken on Wall Street and all the speculation on Main Street. I knew that our whole banking system was a house of cards because I knew that the assets were phony because the assets were mortgages. And I knew that the people who were borrowing money, there's no way they could pay it back.
Sorry to interrupt you. Your voice is so strong. Will you back off your phone?
Oh, okay, sure.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you. Absolutely. And then on top of that, the big banks and brokerage firms then took the security-backed assets, the mortgage loans, and sold those as basically good as gold.
Well, they had to sell them because we don't have any savings. I mean, this whole securitization process was a way to put together American borrowers with all the world's savers. I mean, you can only borrow money from somebody who saved it. And so this process enabled Wall Street to put the Japanese and the Chinese together with the Americans. But all we were doing was borrowing money. And, the Chinese, and, they were dumb enough to lend it to us. They thought they were going to get it back. But, they're not going to get it back because we spent the money. We have no way of paying it back. It wasn't put to a productive use. It was spent. But anyway, so I knew that this was going to end badly. This phony credit bubbled economy based on consumer spending and debt was going to collapse, and that's what's begun. Now, when I was warning about it, I was more fearful not of the collapse, but of the things that the government would do to try to interfere with the collapse, to try to reflate the bubble, to try to return us to the consumer spending economy that is the source of our problems. And that is exactly what the government is trying to do. And in so doing, what they're really doing is pouring gasoline on a raging fire, and it is going to, basically engulf the entire country and burn it to the ground. And every time the fire gets bigger, they're going to pour more gasoline on it. What we need, the only way that America is going to get back on the right track is to have consumers stop spending. We need to rebuild savings. We need capital to be made available to business, not government, so that business can use it to produce the factories of the future, to employ the workers that are losing their jobs in services and finance. We need to allow the free market to work, and it's going to involve a lot of pain because all this artificial living, all this living beyond our means and indulging our every whim and buying things we can't afford, that's got to come to an end. And it's not going to be an easy process. And during the process, asset prices are going to be marked down. Stock prices need to go lower. Real estate prices need to go lower. That's not going to sit well with a lot of people who thought they were going to get rich on asset appreciation, but we need to go back to reality. But what the government is going to do is they're going to prevent all this from happening. They're going to prevent us from getting out of this hole. They're going to dig it deeper. They're trying to encourage more reckless consumption. The entire purpose of the stimulus package and all the bailouts is to keep Americans going to the mall, to keep us reaching for our charge cards, buying more stuff. They want us borrowing more money to buy more houses. They want us borrowing more money to buy more cars. That is the exact opposite of what we need to do. And what they are setting up is the real crisis that I've been warning about. It's going to be a collapse in the value of the dollar. It's coming soon. And when the dollar collapses, you're going to see interest rates spiral out of control. You're going to see consumer prices spiraling out of control. And then we're going to be in a real crisis. Because, see, right now, the government is bailing everybody out and easing the pain. But when the bond market collapses, it's the U.S. government that's going to need a bailout, and there's nobody big enough to do it.
Peter Schiff, what is the time frame? And I know these are liquid and move back and forth, but most of the experts we talk to by Dr. Paul Craig Roberts and Bob Chapman and the head of the New York Business School and countless others, say that what government is doing is accelerating the time frame and bringing the total collapse, what I call hyper-stagflation, closer to reality.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's hard to say, exactly timing. I mean, timing is a very difficult thing to do, especially when there's so much irrationality in the world, and there's so much manipulation. There's so many people with vested interests, so you can never know the timing. Look, we had this huge dollar rally in 2008 that bought us a lot of time. I didn't anticipate that we'd have that big dollar rally. Maybe in hindsight, it's something I should have anticipated, because in the short run, it seems like the opposite of what should happen always happens, because the majority of people seem to always get it wrong, and they do the wrong thing, when they initially are confronted with information. But once this dollar rally really loses steam and begins to fall apart, it's going to take on a lot of momentum.
And that's starting to happen.
See what's happening. Yeah, look at the bond market. I mean, the bond market has been dropping every day this year. In fact, so far, 2009 is the worst year in history for the U.S. bond market. It's the worst year, even though we've only finished 1 month of the year. And if this continues, this could be the beginning of the unraveling.
And the worst year in stocks ever.
Well, it's the worst January in stocks ever, yes. But it's not the worst year. But it's already the worst year in bonds. I mean, January was worse than any entire year that preceded it. That's how bad it was.
Okay, so what's the furthest it could be pushed out until, the layoffs, hundreds of thousands a month, the store shutdowns, and now the bubble in the real estate market is starting to implode. The credit card debt is starting to implode. I mean, as all these things combined with the already circling black hole, what, a year till it's riots in the streets, 2 years?
I don't know. I mean, I've talked about the potential for riots, and I think that exists, and looting, and I think what would cause that would be shortages of food and blackouts, and I think that it is possible that we will see that because the government is unleashing massive inflation, and ultimately the inflation that they're creating is going to cause surging prices, particularly for things like food and energy. And if the government is going to stick to form, they are going to attack the symptoms and not the disease, which is the rising prices. And the only way governments ever attack rising prices is through price controls, which is what we did in the 1970s. And since we're repeating all the mistakes of the 1930s, I'm sure we'll repeat the mistakes of the 1970s. And if we have price controls, we're going to have shortages. And if we have shortages, we're going to have problems. We're going to have crime. And, of course, I think it's going to come at a time, where the cities are not going to have the money and the resources to pay for additional police protection. If not, they might have to cut back on the police protection they have now. And obviously, the criminals will figure that out.
Well, Peter, that was my next question. When we come back, I want to get into that. The states are on the verge of bankruptcy. CalPERS, for those that don't know, the big pension fund system in California, formerly one of the biggest economies in the world, number 8 in the world itself, just that fund, not California itself, but just the fund. They're talking about that going bankrupt. They're doing emergency rainy day funds just to continue the checks going out. The welfare checks are in danger of not going out. That'll be a riot within a week, the Pentagon has predicted in reports they've done. So I want to talk to Peter Schiff about that when we get back. I'm Alex Jones. Our websites are Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. We come back, we'll tell you Peter's website as well and put that on screen. He's with Euro Pacific Capital and has done a great job in the last decade predicting exactly what we're entering into and what the government would do as a response. We'll also get into a lot of other issues as well. Stay with us.
Rough roads might be ahead for the economy, but your vehicle doesn't have to experience them. Can't afford a new vehicle or even an expensive repair? Now you can take care of your vehicle with Protecta Engine Oil Booster by SFR, which is a fully synthetic oil booster. Protecta Engine Oil Booster fortifies your motor oil to help your engine last longer. Protecta Engine Oil Booster has been tested by independent laboratories and proven in over 1 million vehicles worldwide. We'll give you enough Protecta Engine Oil Booster for 5 complete oil changes for only $22.95. $1,995. That's enough for 2 vehicles for up to 1 year. Start taking care of your vehicle today. Take advantage of this limited time offer and receive free shipping. Protecta Engine Oil Booster is the last defense against engine wear. Go to oilcompanysecret.com or call 1-888-873-7371. That's oilcompanysecret.com or 888-873-7371. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. Call 888-873-7371 or visit oilcompanysecret.com.
A day unlike any other in the long course of American history, a terrorist act of war against this country.
The enemy struck America on September 11th. But who is the enemy?
Bin Laden. This is his M.O.
We have to look to the Middle East. We have to look to Osama bin Laden.
Fabled Enemies is the first 9/11 film to take a close look at the terrorist ties to intelligence networks inside the United States.
Some U.S. investigators believe that there are Israelis again very much engaged in spying in and on the U.S.
I'm aware that some Israeli citizens have been detained.
Bin Laden's connections to the CIA, the hijackers' ties to the FBI, the Saudi Arabian connection, the Israeli intelligence network, warnings and war games, the shadow government, and much, much more. Fabled Enemies.